It was a moment the world was watching. Two estranged brothers, reunited by grief. But behind the public facade, a desperate, private confrontation was taking place. Prince William invoked a secret code from their childhood, a vow built around three powerful words and reserved only for the most extreme crisis. It was meant to stop his brother, Harry, in his tracks and force him to listen. But it failed. Instead, it exposed just how deep the wound between them had become. To understand why those sacred words didn't work, you need to understand the story of the bond they once protected and how it was ultimately broken. To the world, they were Prince William and Prince Harry. But to each other, they were simply Willie and Harold. Forged in the unique crucible of royal life, their bond was once considered unbreakable, a singular source of stability in a world of protocol and public scrutiny. This wasn't just a typical sibling relationship. It was a partnership, a two-man team navigating the gilded cage of Kensington Palace. Their early years were defined by a shared experience that no one else could fully comprehend. They were the sons of the future king and the world's most famous woman, Princess Diana. From the moment they were born, their lives were mapped out. William was the heir, and Harry, as he would later write with biting clarity, was the spare. This distinction, an institutional reality, shadowed their entire lives. Harry wrote that he knew from the beginning he was brought into this world in case something happened to his older brother, a backup plan, a potential donor for a kidney or a blood transfusion. But in the innocence of childhood, these titles were just noise. Their true alliance was cemented by their mother. Diana, determined to give them a semblance of a normal life, took them to theme parks, let them eat fast food, and showed them a world beyond the palace walls. It was in these moments, away from the rigid formalities, that their brotherhood flourished. Then, in August 1997, the unthinkable happened. The death of Princess Diana shattered their world. At just 15 and 12 years old, William and Harry were forced to walk behind their mother's coffin in front of a global audience. In that shared, unimaginable trauma, their bond became a lifeline. They clung to each other, two boys against the world, united in a grief that only they could truly understand. It was in the desolate years that followed that they developed their own private language. In his memoir, Spare, Harry revealed that one vow stood above all others, a sacred pact reserved for moments of absolute crisis. The three words were a direct appeal to the most painful memory they shared, on Mummy's life. Harry explained its significance, stating it was a soul-crushing vow they had reserved for nearly 25 years for times when one of them needed to be heard and believed, fast. It was their universal password, a guarantee of absolute honesty, an unbreakable promise rooted in the deepest love and loss they had ever known. For a quarter of a century, this code was their emotional failsafe. No one could have imagined a day would come when those three words would be spoken, only to fall on deaf ears. As the boys grew into men, the institutional chasm between the heir and the spare began to widen into a personal one. Their paths, once parallel, started to diverge. William's life was a straight line, a destiny meticulously planned. He was being groomed for the throne, his focus on duty, tradition, and the preservation of the monarchy. Harry, on the other hand, searched for his own identity outside of his brother's shadow. He found a sense of purpose in the British Army, where he was Captain Wales, not Prince Harry. For 10 years, the military gave him a life of camaraderie and merit, a stark contrast to the birthright-based hierarchy of the palace. This period of independence gave him a taste of a different kind of life. When William met and married Kate Middleton, his path became even clearer. Their union was celebrated as a picture of stability and continuity. The trio of William, Kate, and Harry became a popular and seemingly harmonious force within the royal family, projecting an image of modern, collaborative royalty. But things began to change when Harry met Meghan Markle, an American actress. He was instantly captivated. For the first time, Harry saw a future for himself that wasn't just about supporting his brother, but about building a life on his own terms, with an equal partner by his side. However, Meghan's arrival was not as seamless as Kate's had been. According to Harry, the initial reception from his brother was one of caution. Harry alleges William warned him to slow down, referring to Meghan as an American actress, after all. Anything might happen. To Harry, this felt like snobbery, a judgment based on Meghan's profession and nationality. The tension escalated from there. In his memoir, Harry describes a growing frustration that William seemed to be repeating the negative press narrative about Meghan, allegedly calling her difficult, rude, and abrasive during a confrontation in 2019. Harry felt his brother wasn't just questioning his choice of partner, but was actively buying into the media storm that was engulfing them. This wasn't a disagreement between two men, it was a fundamental clash of worlds. William, the ultimate insider, was committed to protecting the institution. Harry, having found love with an outsider, was beginning to see the institution's flaws in a harsh new light. The cracks in their bond were no longer hairline fractures. They were becoming deep fissures. The fairy tale wedding of Harry and Meghan in May 2018 was supposed to signal a new era for the monarchy. Instead, it marked the beginning of the end. Behind the scenes, the friction between the Sussexes and the royal establishment was intensifying. The relentless and often racially charged British tabloid coverage of Meghan took a severe toll on the couple's mental health. Harry, haunted by his mother's fate, grew increasingly protective of his wife and son, Archie. The situation came to a head in January 2020 when Harry and Meghan announced their intention to step back as seen. The breaking point came in March 2021. Harry and Meghan sat down for a bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey. They spoke of a lack of support, damaging leaks from within the palace, and, most explosively, concerns from a royal family member about how dark their son Archie's skin might be. Harry also told Oprah that he felt his father and brother were trapped within the system. The interview was a declaration of war. To the palace, it was a betrayal. To William, it was a personal and public attack on his family and the institution he was born to lead. Reports emerged that a massive trust issue now existed between them. Just weeks after the Oprah interview aired, a tragedy forced them back into the same orbit. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, passed away at the age of 99. His funeral in April 2021 would be the first time William and Harry would see each other face to face in over a year. The world watched, hoping that shared grief might offer a path to reconciliation. But the stage was set not for healing, but for one of the most heartbreaking confrontations of their lives. The funeral of Prince Philip was a somber, meticulously choreographed affair. As the procession made its way to St. George's Chapel, the two brothers did not walk shoulder to shoulder as they had for their mother. Their cousin, Peter Phillips, walked between them, a physical symbol of the emotional distance that now separated them. The world saw a brief moment of hope when, after the service, William, Kate, and Harry were seen chatting as they walked away from the chapel. But that hope was short-lived. According to Harry's account in Spare, this public civility gave way to a heated, private clash. He, William, and their father, Charles, took a walk in the Frogmore Gardens to talk things through. But the conversation quickly devolved into the same circular arguments. Harry felt they were dismissing his experiences. William, in turn, was deeply hurt by the public accusations from the Oprah interview. At one point, their father, now King Charles, stood between them and pleaded, "Please, boys, don't make my final years a misery." But even that couldn't quell the storm. Feeling that the discussion was going nowhere, Harry tried to walk away. It was then that William, in an act of sheer desperation, confronted him. According to Harry, a steaming William grabbed his shirt. He forced Harry to make eye contact. "Harold, you must listen to me," he pleaded, using his childhood nickname. "I just want you to be happy, Harold. I swear on Mummy's life." The words stopped Harry cold. Their father, Charles, also froze. William had done it. He had invoked the soul-crushing vow, the one phrase that had been their sacred ground for nearly 25 years. It was the ultimate last resort, meant to cut through all the noise and anger. It was a plea for belief, backed by the most profound authority they knew, the memory of their mother. It was supposed to be the one thing that could never fail. The sacred words hung in the air, but they didn't have their intended effect. William had used the code, their universal password, to force a breakthrough. Yet, what happened next was perhaps the most telling and tragic moment in their entire fallout. As Harry wrote in Spare, The shock wasn't that William had used the words, but that they no longer worked. In that devastating instant, Harry realized the trust was so completely shattered that even this most sacred of oaths couldn't repair it. He wrote with heartbreaking finality, "I simply didn't believe him." With his voice breaking, Harry replied softly, "I really don't think you do." That quiet response was more damning than any shouting match. It was the confirmation that the bond, once a lifeline, was now dead. The magic was gone. The code was broken. William's ultimate weapon, his final, desperate appeal to their shared history and love for their mother, had proven powerless. The confrontation at Frogmore Gardens wasn't a beginning to a reconciliation. It was the definitive end of an era. It laid bare the truth. The grievances ran too deep, and the chasm of mistrust had become too vast to be bridged, even by the memory of Princess Diana. William, the future king, saw an attack on his family and the monarchy. Harry, the self-proclaimed Spare, saw a family that had failed to protect his own. The publication of Spare in 2023 only carved these divisions deeper into stone, turning private pain into public controversy and making any future reconciliation even more unlikely. William was reportedly left furious about the betrayals of confidences, feeling that anything he said could be made public. The journey from two boys clinging to each other in grief to two men standing on opposite sides of an unbridgeable divide is a modern royal tragedy. The story of Mummy's life isn't just about a secret code. It's about the moment a sacred promise lost its power. It reveals that when trust is completely eroded, no words, no matter how powerful or deeply rooted in shared love, can force a heart to believe what it can no longer feel. Since that day, the brothers have barely spoken, their interactions limited to fleeting, formal appearances. Royal commentators now speculate that their rift has reached a point of no return. The two boys who once promised to always be there for each other now seem to exist in separate worlds, bound by blood and a lifetime of broken memories. The question that remains is a somber one. If a vow made on their mother's life couldn't bring them back together, what on earth ever could? What do you think? Can the relationship between William and Harry ever be salvaged? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.